Would you like to hear a couple of stories that I've got about the power of emotional logic to help with people who are on long-term sick and wanting to return to work in some way? Um, I was reading in the newspaper just recently, 2.5 million people in the United Kingdom are currently off work on long-term sickness absence. And the majority of those, or a large proportion of those, will be due to mental health problems, anxiety and depression, some of whom will be very severely affected, others more mildly, but not having the confidence or the ability to get back to work. I know from my time in general practice that if you've been off work for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're far more likely to extend your time off work much, much longer. So it becomes a trap. Well, early on with Emotional Logic, we were invited to do some work with people who are off long-term sick, having had attempted suicides. They were with a social services department and been there, some of them, for a year or two in various types of rehabilitation. And they invited us in. We just did a half-day's training with about 15 of them, and it was quite a dramatic episode, quite emotional for them to face their emotions, but we were reassured by the staff not to worry about expressions of emotion as we were talking about emotions, because people were simply engaging in a constructive way. Do you know what happened? A lot of those were actually teachers. And after just that half-day introduction, some of those teachers realised that their emotions could be part of the solution, but weren't just because they had an unpleasant emotional experience. That wasn't the problem. There was other things to do with their values and so on that were being challenged. They started to run literacy courses in the people in that unit. They gradually grew in confidence to recover their ability to teach. And some of them left the unit and went back to teaching after, a minimal input with understanding their emotions in a new way. That was transformative. These were people who'd been off sick long term. They'd had recurrent suicidal attempts, and they found understanding their emotions in a whole new context made a world of difference for them. There's another story. We're doing this with another group of people who again were off long-term sick with depressive episodes. And after the first couple of sessions out of an 8-session course, one man stopped coming along, and we thought, oh, well, can't help everybody in a group like this. Got to the end of the course, and most people got a lot of benefit from it. We did a follow-up sort of questionnaire interviews, contacted the guy, and he said, oh, no, it wasn't that I didn't like it. I got it straight away. I suddenly saw something different, and I thought, hold on a moment. I can sort of get back to engaging with people again. So he went out and got himself a voluntary job in a library. And then from that, he'd actually developed his skills and had got himself a paid part-time job. So there's something about reframing the way you picture unpleasant emotions that can be liberating for people, even if they've been off long-term sick. And there's something about having that confidence to return back to a workplace that is overcome by understanding your unpleasant emotions in a more constructive way. They are part of the solutions. That emotion is energy in motion. And when you understand it in that way, as these things string together in a healthy adjustment process, it doesn't feel great, feels a bit risky, but you know why you're heading onto that growth cycle so that you can come through stronger when facing the next challenge or the next bit of doubt, and not knowing quite what the other person is thinking or how they're going to relate to you. Nevertheless, those emotions, those unpleasant emotions of loss reactions, become a resource to you when you understand why they're there and can move through the emotion to name the values and talk about the values. What's important, what's missing, what's gone wrong, what am I hoping for that isn't happening? That's the sort of confidence, the shift to conversational balance that comes when you understand the emotions differently. So I really believe that if we could extend the understanding of emotional logic much more widely, then people who are feeling challenged at work wouldn't need such a long time off, or they'd be more easily able to connect with their true innocence, their true values, and take the risks needed to relate to people differently. And here is the key. This is what I just want to leave you with when thinking about this. There's about a 70% growth of young people who are off work long term because of anxiety and depression. If people could simply grasp that the first benefit that comes from understanding these emotions differently is improved responsiveness in relationships, so that people don't feel so quickly criticized or doubted or doubt themselves, but can just hold that space, that emotional space, and say, no, these emotions are here for a reason, to do with what's important to me. Let's just take a little bit of time in a safe place to name what it is that is being challenged in me. What am I worried I might lose in this situation? Let's turn that upside down. I'd only name it as a loss if it was something I valued. That means I've got values. So I ought to stay here with my values and share those values with other people. That's the conversational skill and confidence that people need to overcome the anxiety and depression, to put themselves willingly back in a social environment like a workplace and engage with people even when something unpredictable happens. So there's less doubt about your own resources, more awareness that you are able to respond. You've got something of value to respond around. And I believe that will bring a greater resilience, a greater ability to return back into constructive work. Because it isn't just your feelings that are actually the problem. It's feeling ineffective, feeling uncertain that I can actually say anything or do anything that's going to make a difference. That's what generates the anxiety and the depression. And as soon as you understand that these emotions are part of your capacity, your ability, your resources to actually be present, and to be present in an act of kindness, actually. You bring your values in as an act of kindness to those around you. Now you've got something to be there for. Now it's not just about illness or health or well-being. It's about being part of a creative life with others. That's health. And that's the step on that people need. It's not just about economic viability. It's about finding true value of yourself with others, living a constructive and creative life, so that you can go home at the end of the day and say, okay, that was all right. We did something useful, but we contributed to each other's presence and sense of well-being. That's where we end up with Emotional Logic. So thank you for listening. If you know somebody who is challenged in that way, who's having difficulty with their work setting, do point them to the Emotional Logic website, Emotional Logic Centre website. But if you want to know more about the background, come on to my website, relatedness.net. That's where we're talking about what's going on with those qualities of relationship that actually are the resilience and the adaptability and the strength that comes from understanding our emotions more constructively. Thank you.